Okay, let's talk about pickpockets. I don't want to frighten you, but I do want you to be prepared and mindful. So let's try to find the balance there. The first thing I want to tell you is that traveling in Europe is extremely safe. There's not a lot of violent crime. It really is quite safe. Pickpockets are the number one crime that tourists and travelers fall victim to. And there is a season, of course, so summer travel. And some of these pickpockets that make a living doing this, they are extremely skilled and they don't even live in the area where you're traveling. They come in for tourist season. So big cities like Barcelona and Rome and probably Athens, those are going to be the real hot spots for pickpockets, but pickpockets can be anywhere. And the first thing I want to tell you is that looks are very deceiving. I've had personal experiences and I'll tell my stories at the very end, but looks can be very, very deceiving. Pickpockets are the most well-dressed ladies and gentlemen on the street in the three-piece suit. They are the sweetest children. They are rambunctious teens that look like they're just having a typical day together with their friends. Um, they're the mom with the baby on a hip and a shopping bag and who looks like she's just going about her business. These are all pickpockets. And so they do not wear a warning sign. So you really have to be mindful of everyone around you. Um, my number one tip would be that if you feel like trust your instincts, if you feel that someone is really in your personal space and doesn't need to be, that should be a huge warning, okay? Really pay attention to where your things are. If you have a backpack, bring it around to the front of you. If you have a crossbody bag, make sure that everything is zipped, locked, and that you've got your hand on it. Just be mindful when you feel like people are closing in on you. Pay attention to what's going on. They are skilled at distracting, and so they might strike up a friendly conversation with you or something like that. So if you feel like someone's in your personal space, be super mindful of that. They do definitely target public places. So any kind of public transportation, trains, buses, big piazzas, plazas, courtyards where there's a line or a lot of people, or if there's a street performer that a lot of people are gathering around, those are prime spots for pickpockets. It's like easy picking. You will be given by me to use on this trip. You will be given an RFID blocking sleeve for your passport, and you will also be given two RFID blocking sleeves, one for your debit card and one for your credit card. And so all you have to do is Google Rick Steves pickpockets or RFID sleeves to get more information about that if you want. But basically, what's happened now is that we are so digital, and our credit and debit cards have the little chip reader in them. Pickpockets are able to have an app on their phone, and you may see, and I've seen this, a man on a bus pulled out his phone, it looked like he was just on his phone, put it back in his pocket, and then proceeded to get extremely close to myself and other people in the group. He was trying to scan our debit and credit cards, but we had everything in sleeves. And so that's how they do it. That's how it works. I said I was going to save my stories till the end, but I'm not. Another group I was with, a young woman pulled out her credit card, took it out of the sleeve to pay for a purchase, and the man pushed right up next to her, like, oh, it was an accident. I was just getting in line, that kind of a thing. No. He was trying to get her information, and the clerk actually yelled at him, and then I stepped in between, and it wasn't violent or anything like that. I'm really trying not to scare you, but you just have to be super aware. And so as I'm mentioning that, I will say, as I said in another video, I will say again that if you feel comfortable with the technology and setting up tap and pay on your phone or on your smartwatch, I do highly recommend it. That's the only way I pay overseas, because then I don't have to pull my credit card out of its sleeve. I can just tap, clear that off the screen, and as far as I know, that's the safest way to pay for things using my credit card. So yeah, there's that. So when you are traveling overseas, make sure that you keep everything in those protective sleeves. If you are not using it in that moment, put it right back in that RFID blocking protective sleeve. Do not put anything in your pockets, not your front pocket or your back pocket or your shirt pocket or no pockets, not your money, definitely not your passport, and not your phone, because it is not safe in your pockets. It needs to be in a crossbody or under your shirt. It needs to be nice and safe. Now, of course, I have my phone out all the time, and I just slip it back in my bag. I found over the last couple trips, some of the gentlemen on my trips have found these very small sort of front backpacks, and they have loved them. So that's an inexpensive purchase, and it's a way for the guys on the trip who don't want to carry a crossbody bag, like a man bag or merce or whatever you want to call it. They want something a little bit smaller. Then you can just do like a real small backpack that kind of is meant to be worn in the front, and the gentlemen love those. Okay, but do whatever you're comfortable with. So nothing in pockets. Also, if you have a purse or a backpack or a crossbody bag of any kind, and you sit down at a restaurant, you've got your phone, you're taking pictures, if you want to take off that backpack, do not put it on the back of your chair, or do not set your phone on the table. Everything really, like your phone, needs to be in your hand or right back in your bag. And if you want to unload your bag and rest your shoulders, then set it on the ground, but loop it through your leg, like put your foot through the strap, so that if someone walks by and tries to take it, they can't without pulling you out of the chair. So that is my suggestion for that. Oftentimes I just leave it on while I'm sitting in a restaurant, but if you want to take it off, that's fine. Set it down and put your foot through it. But otherwise, do not take your bags off and set them down without them being connected to your body in some way, because they can be gone very, very quickly. Even one of my tour directors had this happen to her one time right before our trip. She was telling me about it. It was funny. She was in Rome, and she's like, I'm a Roman. I know how these things work, but it still happened to me. So we can all be victim. Okay, and I do recommend also, if you are nervous about traveling overseas at all, you can buy a very inexpensive under the clothing sort of money belt. They're very inexpensive on Amazon, and it's soft fabric, and they're not too bulky. You can get the ones that go around the neck under the clothing, or like around your waist. I don't use them anymore because I find that it's very difficult to access what I need in public. You really have to go somewhere private so that you can dig under your clothing to get what you need. So I don't use them anymore, but when I traveled with students, I required them to wear one every day. So, but if you feel like you'd be more comfortable with that, at least for like, I don't know, carrying your passport, or for example, if you do set up tap and pay, but you need to have that credit card, the actual credit card somewhere, put it in that under the clothing money belt. You're not going to need to access it all day long, but you've still got it and you know where it is, and it's on you and you know it's safe. So there's a perfect example. Also, let's talk a little bit about what we call gypsies. Gypsies are pickpockets who you may see in a lot of clothing, bent over on the side of the walkway, and they hold out a cup. You can't really see their face. It's a very interesting thing to see, actually. You about trip over them, but just know that they look like they really need your financial assistance, but I have been told by tour directors, if you drop a coin in their cup, you will pull your hand away and all of your jewelry and watches will be gone. So I don't know what that's about, but I just walked to the other side of the path. So definitely avoid them, please. And also, gypsies can also look like a couple children or someone who comes up to you and they hand you a rose, or they hand you a bracelet that they made, or they hand you a piece of paper that they want you to read. And while they're distracting you, their partner is either pickpocketing you, or if a gentleman comes up and says you're beautiful and gives you a rose and you say, oh my gosh, thank you, then they want you to pay 10 euro for the rose or something like that. And then you try to hand the rose back to them and they won't take it, and it's a whole ordeal. So just don't take anything from anyone. It's difficult too, because your instinct is just to, like, if someone hands you something, you just grab it, but just don't. So just a little bit of heads up about that. I already told you the story about the bus and the wine or the purchasing at it was wine that a person was purchasing, pulling her card out of her sleeve. The rest of the story about the pickpocket on the bus when I was with a group, as I said, he pulled out his phone and then really invaded our personal space to the extreme. And then after a few minutes, bolted off the bus, walked down. When we got back to the hotel, we found that many of the girls found that, this was a student trip, found that their hotel key cards wouldn't work. So he had wiped them clean, but luckily they were reissued cards, of course, but all of our debit and credit cards were in protective sleeves, so none of our finances were compromised. But it just made it very clear that what we suspected was happening was indeed happening. He had an app on his phone and he was wiping clean whatever we had that wasn't protected. So luckily, my travelers, knock on wood, have been smart, prepared, and have been safe. So I hope that gives you some helpful tips about pickpockets and how to stay safe from them. Again, I will lend you RFID blocking sleeves so that you don't have to worry about that, or of course you can buy your own. It's not bad to have anytime you're in any big city, even here in the US. Pickpockets aren't just in Europe, they're everywhere. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. If you want more information, there's a handout that you will also be emailed, that's a Rick Steves document about staying safe overseas. There are lots of videos. Rick Steves has lots of great information out there about staying safe from pickpockets. And if you just want to spend a few minutes on YouTube, just Google or YouTube search pickpockets caught on camera, and it will blow your mind. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, let me know, and stay safe.